Hey guys, I'm Dr. Carrie Wise, founder of JoyfulDVM and certified life coach, and today I want to talk about who has your back. So it's a question. Who has your back? How would you answer that question? And I've got to thinking about this lately because over the last couple of weeks, I have been going through it with technology. Literally on the 1st of June, I opened up my computer and I found thousands and thousands of files gone, like mysteriously disappeared, and it was pretty instantaneous. Now, I'm very thankful. I have Apple products. I was able to do a little bit of digging, and what I was able to find was that at 11:30 p.m. the night before, on what would that have been? It would have been May 31st, like 11:30 p.m. That was when the last change was made to this, which was actually the desktop of my computer, where all the files disappeared. Now, I gotta tell you, like, I store everything on the desktop. So for those of you who ever worked with me in like the physical world, you know what my desk looked like, right? Like this was just kind of one of those silly things that I inherited from my dad, like the ever piling desk of stuff. And it followed me into veterinary practice no matter where I worked. It followed me into education. I really remember at one point the president of our college told me I was a fire hazard because of all the piles. It made lots of sense to me. And I tell you this because over the years, I've transitioned from those piles of physical materials on my desk to files and files and files on the desktop of my computer. And there was security in that. I knew exactly where they were. I could use the Finder and I could search and I could find those files in an instant. So you can imagine my surprise when I opened up my computer on the 1st of June and on my computer desktop, literally 4 files. It was just kind of like, I was like, what? Like 4 files? Like it didn't seem real at all. It didn't seem possible that there were 4 files there. So then I go into like, where are they? And look in different folders and try to figure it out. And that's when I determined that somehow at 11:30 the night before when I was asleep, the files disappeared. I did not get hacked. Let me just give you that. Like I did not get hacked. And in this moment, I was like, what the heck? Right? And I was thankful because I have Apple products and this is not an Apple like infomercial at all, but I just want to share my experience. And so I went through, I knew that my desktop was backed up to the iCloud. So I went to the iCloud, iCloud.com, and I logged in there because if any of you guys who've ever accidentally deleted stuff, like you usually can find it in your cloud. So I go in there and I click on the desktop file in iCloud drive. 4 files. Now I'm starting to feel a little panicky. 4 files. What am I going to do? My instinct was to call somebody. My instinct was to ask somebody to fix this problem. And this actually is what, as I've been through this over the last 2 weeks, what kind of brought me to wanting to talk about this today and ask you guys the question, who has your back? The unexpected happens all the time, right? For me, the most recent was this disappearance of thousands and thousands. I'm talking like 20 to 30,000 files. It was not a small number of files just instantly gone. Like that was just the most recent unexpected in my world. But it wasn't the only one, right? As I kind of considered it and I've thought back, I have really come up with 4 other ones that were very, very significant in my life. Obviously, like the loss of files, like in the grand scheme of things, not that significant, right? But other things that kind of rattled me where I really thought, who's going to help me? Things like my very first job. I moved 1,000 miles away from my dream job just to get out there, and it was a freaking nightmare. What the heck? What was I going to do? I realized that after a week. Divorce. I wasn't going to ever be a divorced person. When I got married, I wasn't going to be a divorced person. And then I was. Who's going to help me with that? My dad passing away completely unexpectedly. Yet another opportunity. Who's going to help me? I don't know what to do in that situation. It doesn't make any sense. And I had another one. The other one, what was I had 5. The files. There's one more. You guys could probably see it in the post for this. And as I kind of thought back through those different things that happened. Oh, I know what it was. The other one was when another job situation. So I worked for a company as a remote employee. And I had been working in a remote capacity for a long time outside of, and I was based in St. Louis. I lived on the Illinois side, and we decided to move to the Missouri side. And it was physically further away from the campus that I worked at, but I was remote and I was working nationwide for the company. And I was guaranteed, like, and assured, no big deal. Like, you can live wherever you want to. And so I moved. And we no sooner got to Missouri then they're like, oh, just kidding. We need you to come back now and work in the St. Louis office, which at that point was like 3 hours away. So again, what am I going to do? Who am I going to call? And so all of these different situations that pop up, and I know you guys experience them as well, you wonder, like, what am I going to do? Who's got my back here? Like, because these things just seems completely outside of us, right? They're brought on by things that we can't control at all. So who has your back? And I want you to think about the times in your life where you've been really challenged with a situation. I want you to answer that same question. And I want to share with you my personal opinion of what the right answer is, because there's just one person that matters, and that's you. The only person that needs to have your back ever is just you. This one is really hard to grab onto, especially when you're young and you're just kind of getting out into your first jobs and you're just really starting to experience things on your own. Our instinct is always to call back and to get help from the people who helped us in the past. I remember this like greater than anything in the world. When I was in college, totally just kind of forgot about the story, but it's a perfect example. When I was in college, I was actually a music major my first year of school, so that's kind of funny for all of us. But I was a music major, and I ended up with a scholarship after my first year of undergrad, and I moved out to Laramie, Wyoming, because I got a scholarship to go to the University of Wyoming. And I remember moving out there that summer before, and I woke up in the middle of the night to my cat, my kitten, calico kitten at that point, she was probably about 6 months old, screaming. And it's like 2 o'clock in the morning. And I go and I find her, and she's in our spare room, and we had fishing poles with the hooks, and she had hooked herself. So she'd probably been playing with a lure, and she'd hooked herself, and there was a hook like through her paw. And I was completely panicked. So what do you do at 2 o'clock in the morning when your cat has managed to hook herself with a fish hook? You call your dad, the vet, at 2 o'clock in the morning, right? You're like, oh my gosh, I don't know what to do. I couldn't even think. Like at that point I was so like panic set in so quickly, I didn't even give myself the opportunity to critically think through that. And as we get older, the reason I tell you this is because, I call and he's like, just clip it like on the other side of the barb and it'll pull right out. And by golly, he was right. It's not that big of a deal when it was all said and done. But in that moment, like oftentimes when we're encountering these things that just seem so overwhelming, when that overwhelm kind of kicks in and that panic starts to take over, your sympathetic nervous system just really gets to moving and your brain slows down, right? Like the things that you don't even know anymore. You forget phone numbers, you forget names, you forget resources. And I think this is so important to recognize, because we so often then in those moments forget that we actually already have all of the answers that we need if we will just slow it down enough to recognize that, to really just rely on ourselves. And so as you grow and as you encounter more and more experiences that have unexpected events occur where you need to make decisions and to like find solutions, what I want you guys to remember and to consider is, what if the perfect solution is already in you? What if you already know the answer? We tend to default to the people who we think know more than we do, that know better than we do. But what I want you to see is that that's very rarely true. There are certainly times when we do need the assistance of other people. So let's go back to the story of the files. So what could I do in that moment?